The storm rolled in without warning, waves hammering the rocky shoreline with a roar that swallowed every sound of the night. A muffled cry pierced through the chaos, faint but sharp enough to claw into Emma's chest. She said, "That's no gull. It's a baby seal." Her boots splashed across the slick rocks as she lunged forward, guided only by instinct. The beam of her flashlight trembled with her breath, cutting through spray and shadows until it landed on the writhing form. Tangled in a fisherman's abandoned net, the pup thrashed, its dark eyes wide with terror, its tiny body scraping against stone. Emma said, "Hold on, little one, I've got you." Every second was a battle, the waves crashing higher, the wind howling louder, as if nature itself was fighting her. Salt stung her eyes, panic clawed at her ribs, but she forced herself closer. The seal's cries broke into ragged whimpers, a sound too raw to bear. Her hands shook as she reached for the coarse rope, knowing that in this storm, every moment lost could be the end. The storm pressed harder, as if determined to drown out every chance of survival. Emma forced her body lower against the rocks, her chest scraping stone as she reached again for the net. She said, "It's all right, I won't leave you." The seal gave a shudder, its thin cry wavering through the storm. Lightning painted its small frame silver, every cut of the rope digging into its slick skin. Her flashlight slipped and rolled, sending shadows dancing like ghosts across the waves. She lunged and grabbed it, her hands slick with seawater and grit. Emma said, "Damn it, stay with me, little one." Her voice was raw, shredded by wind and salt. For a moment fear coiled around her, the thought of being too late. But then the seal blinked, as if pleading, and her determination surged again. She shoved back the storm in her mind, focusing on the single fragile life before her. The tide surged higher, soaking Emma's knees, dragging at her boots like a predator. She clenched the net tighter, teeth bared against the roar. The seal's cries weakened, its movement slowing, exhaustion weighing it down. She said, "No, stay awake, fight it." Her own pulse thrashed in her ears, louder than the storm. She remembered another night like this years ago when she hadn't been fast enough. That memory sliced through her as she pulled harder. The rope was slick, unyielding, digging grooves into her palm. Her lungs burned as if she had been underwater. She cried out, "Come on!" The storm answered with thunder shaking the earth, but she refused to let go. Every second she fought was another second closer to hope, another step away from the silence she feared most. Emma dragged the flashlight close and wedged it between the rocks, locking its beam onto the net. Her fingers clawed at the fibers, nails splitting, skin peeling raw. She hissed through clenched teeth, "You're not dying tonight." The storm battered her with icy spray, but she didn't move. The seal's chest heaved faintly, a fragile rise and fall that told her time was running thin. Her jacket clung to her body like a second skin, heavy and cold, but her arms burned with relentless effort. She could hear the sea tearing at the rocks behind her, hungry to drag both rescuer and victim away. She said softly, "Just a little longer. Just a little more." Her voice was breaking, but her will was iron. She leaned all her weight into the knot, desperate to split it apart before the next surge pulled them under. The rope finally snapped, strands whipping against her face with a sting. Emma nearly sobbed with relief as the net loosened around the pup's body. She grabbed the seal gently, lifting it from the jagged stone and cradling it against her chest. It whimpered, weak but alive, its slick fur cold against her skin. She whispered, "You're free. You're safe now." The storm did not relent. The waves still lashed and thunder roared. But for a moment, all Emma could feel was the trembling creature in her arms. Her heart slammed against her ribs, exhaustion clawing at every muscle. But she held tight. The night no longer belonged to chaos alone. It now carried fragile hope born from desperation and love. She pressed her cheek to the pup's damp fur, whispering again, "I've got you." Emma staggered into the shelter of a weather-beaten cabin, clutching the trembling seal against her chest. She whispered, "It's okay now, you're safe." The storm raged beyond the thin wooden walls, rattling them like bones in the wind. She knelt by the hearth, fumbling with damp matches, until a flame flickered weakly to life. The room glowed dimly, revealing old nets and rusted hooks hanging from the beams, ghosts of battles with the sea. The pup whimpered again, pressing against her, and Emma felt her heart crack. She said, "I know that sound. I've heard it before." Her mind flickered to a night years ago, a memory of another seal that hadn't survived, its silence haunting her still. She stroked the pup's wet fur, whispering promises as if they could rewrite the past. The storm might still win outside, but here, inside, she swore no life would be lost again. The seal shivered violently, its tiny body curled tight, chest heaving with shallow breaths. Emma laid it on a blanket near the fire, wrapping it as best she could. She said, "Stay with me, don't give in." The storm howled through cracks in the cabin, reminding her how fragile their safety was. Her hands hovered above the pup, torn between urgency and fear of hurting it. She remembered her father's words, "Sometimes saving means risking more than you should." Her eyes closed briefly, pain etching deep into her features. She whispered, "I won't lose you like I lost the last one." Lightning illuminated her silhouette as she bent close, her breath mingling with the pup's in the chill air. The bond forged here was unshakable, carved not just from duty but from grief and a desperate need for redemption. The pup let out a weak cry, its eyes glistening with confusion and pain. Emma reached for her pack, pulling out a small first aid kit. Her fingers trembled as she opened it, the tiny vials and gauze rattling in her haste. She said, "Easy now, I'm here." The storm's thunder seemed to mock her efforts, as if daring her to fail. She pressed cloth against the wounds, whispering encouragement with each careful touch. The seal flinched, then stilled, its breathing slow but steady. Emma blinked back tears, her voice catching, "You remind me of the one I couldn't save." The memory gnawed at her, twisting her gut, but she refused to falter. Every action was fueled by the promise she made to herself years ago: no creature would die in her hands again. A sudden pounding at the cabin door jolted Emma upright, the sound harsh against the storm's constant roar. She froze, clutching the pup instinctively closer. The voice of Mark, her old friend, cut through the wind. "Emma, open up." She rushed to the door, pulling it open against the gale, revealing Mark drenched, face pale with worry. He stepped in, his eyes immediately falling on the pup. "God, what happened?" Emma's voice cracked. "I found it tangled in a net." Mark's gaze softened, but doubt lingered in his tone. "Are you sure it will make it?" Emma turned sharply, firelight reflecting in her eyes. "It has to." Her defiance filled the cabin like a second storm, unshaken even as the wind tore at the shutters. Mark crouched beside the fire, inspecting the pup's shallow breaths. His brow furrowed as he said, "It's weak, Emma. Maybe too weak." Her jaw tightened, hands stroking the seal's damp fur. "No," she said firmly, "I won't give up." The storm rattled the windows, as if echoing Mark's doubts. He looked at her with quiet sorrow, seeing the weight of her determination. "You're risking yourself again," he whispered. She met his gaze with steel in her voice. "If I walk away now, then every scar I carry means nothing." Silence settled between them, broken only by the pup's faint cry and the fire's crackle. The cabin was a fragile world of light and shadow, bound together by a fragile promise that one life, just one, could still be saved. The storm eased at dawn, but the silence it left was heavier than thunder. Emma tightened her coat, staring at the pup's frail body as it shivered under the blanket. She whispered, "We can't stay here, Mark. It needs proper care." Mark's jaw clenched as he gazed out the cracked window, the sea now calmer yet still menacing. He muttered, "The road to the center is washed out and the radios are dead. We're trapped." Emma's chest ached as she looked down at the pup, its shallow breaths slowing. Her voice trembled, "If we wait, it won't survive." Mark turned sharply, frustration laced with fear. "You'll risk your life for it, like always." Emma met his glare with steel. "I already risked everything to get it this far. I won't stop now." Her words cut through the cabin's gloom, sharper than the storm outside. Emma wrapped the pup tighter, lifting it gently into her arms. Its tiny body felt unbearably light, its strength fading with every moment. She said, "We're going with or without a clear road." Mark stepped forward, his hands raised in protest. "Emma, listen to me. The bridge is gone. The cliffs are unstable. You'll get yourself killed." She glared at him, eyes blazing, and snapped, "Then help me find another way." The fire cracked between them like a warning, shadows stretching across their faces. Mark looked torn, his voice breaking. "Why do you always carry this burden? You can't save them all." Emma's reply was firm, whispered yet unyielding. "Maybe not, but I can save this one." The silence afterward was deafening, broken only by the pup's fragile cry. The cabin door burst open with a gust of cold air, revealing Lucas, the village warden, his presence a storm of its own. His voice carried authority as he barked, "You can't move that animal, Emma. It's against regulations." Emma's eyes narrowed, her arms tightening around the pup. "Regulations don't matter if it dies." Lucas stepped closer, his uniform damp with rain, expression hard. "That seal could carry disease. It's not worth the risk." Mark shifted uneasily, torn between the two. Emma stood her ground, firelight catching her sharp profile. "Its life is worth everything. I won't abandon it." The tension crackled, heavier than the storm outside. Lucas growled, "If you defy me, you'll answer for it." Emma's grip only tightened, her voice steel and sorrow combined. "Then I'll answer later. Right now it needs me." Lucas slammed the door shut, his voice echoing in the confined cabin. "If you take it, you'll bring more trouble than you can handle." Emma stood tall, her face fierce, words cutting like knives. "I've handled worse than your threats." Mark intervened softly. "Lucas, she just wants to save it." The warden's eyes burned into him, then back to Emma. "And if the authorities find out, you'll be stripped of everything." Emma's jaw tightened, memories clawing back into her mind. She whispered, "I've already lost everything that mattered once. I won't lose again." Lucas hesitated, taken aback by the rawness in her tone. For a moment, silence filled the room except for the seal's faint cry, a plea stronger than any argument. The fight wasn't just about survival now. It was about redemption. The pup stirred weakly, a fragile sound that sliced through the heavy silence. Emma looked down, tears burning in her eyes, her voice a whisper only the seal could hear. "Hold on, please hold on." Mark's shoulders sagged, his voice low. "Emma, we'll find a way, but not by fighting everyone." Lucas crossed his arms, stern but shaken. His tone softened reluctantly. "You don't know what you're risking." Emma raised her gaze, eyes bright with defiance and grief. "I know exactly what I'm risking, and I'd rather risk everything than do nothing." The fire popped, sending sparks into the air, as if marking her vow. The three stood frozen in a fragile standoff, the storm outside pounding the world, while inside a different storm brewed, one of morality, love, and survival. The storm subsided, leaving the cabin heavy with damp silence. Emma gently stroked the seal, but her eyes burned as she saw deep rope scars cut into its fur. She whispered, "This wasn't an accident. Someone left that net." Mark frowned, pacing near the door, his boots squelching on the wet floorboards. "You think someone did this on purpose?" Lucas shifted uneasily, his gaze sliding away. Emma's voice hardened. "That net was tied too tight, too deliberate." Her hands shook as anger replaced exhaustion. The memory of old scars on other creatures surfaced, and her chest tightened. Lucas muttered, "You don't understand the politics here." Emma snapped, "Politics don't strangle pups." The realization dawned on her. This was more than nature's cruelty. This was human cruelty, hidden in plain sight, and she swore to uncover it. Emma's mind raced as she turned to Lucas, voice sharp. "How long have you known nets are being left behind?" He shifted, avoiding her stare, muttering, "Some fishermen, they don't care. They say it keeps seals out of their catch." Mark cursed under his breath, pacing harder. "So they're killing them for profit." Emma's fists clenched, rage surging hotter than the fire. "This pup isn't their casualty, it's their victim." The seal whimpered, drawing her focus back, its tiny body trembling in pain. Emma bent low, whispering, "I promise I won't let them win." Her voice was soft, but steel-threaded every word. She knew now the fight was not against the sea, but against those who saw life as expendable. And she would not back down. Lucas finally admitted, voice low, "It's been happening for years. Nets left behind, animals suffering. No one reports it because the economy depends on the catch." Emma's stomach churned, her voice breaking with fury. "You let this continue? You turned away while they died?" Mark's face hardened, stepping closer to Lucas. "You knew, and said nothing?" The warden's silence was his answer. Emma looked down at the pup, tears threatening, whispering, "They were never meant to suffer for our greed." Her hand trembled as she stroked its fur. The truth clawed at her chest. This wasn't random. This pup's suffering was the face of a hidden cruelty, one she was now bound to expose, no matter the cost. Mark spoke with quiet rage. "If we expose them, the whole village will turn against us." Emma met his eyes fiercely. "Then let them. This is bigger than survival. This is justice." Lucas tried to interrupt, but Emma's voice cut sharp. "Don't bother. You already chose silence." She held the pup closer, its breathing shallow but steady, and whispered, "You'll be the reason I don't stop." Mark exhaled heavily, torn between loyalty to her and fear of what lay ahead. Outside, the sea hissed against the rocks, its voice echoing the truth. Danger wasn't gone, it had only changed shape. Now, human greed was the storm they had to face. Emma rose to her feet, seal in her arms, and declared, "If no one else will fight for them, I will." Mark's voice broke with concern. "Emma, this could destroy you." She turned, eyes burning with defiance and sorrow. "It already has. But I won't let it destroy them too." Lucas stepped back, defeated, his authority crumbling in the glow of her conviction. The seal whimpered again, a sound fragile yet unyielding, sealing her vow. Outside, the storm clouds parted slightly, light breaking through as if bearing witness to her promise. She whispered to the pup, "You are not just another casualty. You are the reason everything changes." And in that moment, Emma's mission shifted from rescue to revolution. Emma trudged along the ruined cliff path, the baby seal bundled against her chest, waves pounding below like drums of war. Mark followed, carrying supplies, his voice strained. "This is madness, Emma. The path won't hold." She pressed forward, jaw locked, replying, "It has to. The pup won't last otherwise." Rocks slid beneath her boots, the edge crumbling as sea spray whipped against her face. The seal whimpered faintly, its tiny body weak, but alive. Emma whispered, "I've got you. Don't give up now." Mark cursed as another rock tumbled into the ocean below. His fear was palpable, but Emma's resolve burned stronger. Each step forward felt like defiance against both nature and man, and she swore no force would claim this fragile life while she still breathed. The ground gave way beneath Emma's boot, sending her stumbling. Mark shouted, "Emma!" but she steadied herself, clutching the seal tighter. "I won't drop you," she whispered fiercely to the pup. A jagged section of cliff collapsed into the roaring sea, forcing them onto a narrow ledge. Mark gasped, "We should turn back." Emma's eyes blazed. "There's no turning back. We're too close." The wind screamed through the cliffs, trying to tear them off the path, while the ocean below surged like a beast hungry for prey. The seal stirred weakly, a fragile reminder of what they were fighting for. Emma pressed on, every muscle trembling, every step carrying the weight of life and death. The path narrowed into a sharp climb, jagged rocks slicing her hands as Emma pulled herself upward. The seal whimpered, its breath shallow, and her chest tightened with fear. She gasped, "Stay with me, please." Mark scrambled behind, his face pale with terror. "Emma, we can't make it." Her reply was a roar against the storm. "We will." A loose boulder tumbled past, crashing into the sea below with a deafening splash. Emma pressed the seal closer, blood from her scraped palms smearing across her jacket. Her muscles screamed in agony, but she climbed higher, driven by fury, grief, and love. The world narrowed to this rock storm, and the fragile heartbeat against her chest. At the cliff's peak, Emma collapsed to her knees, gasping for air, the seal nestled weakly in her arms. Mark staggered beside her, chest heaving. "You're insane," he muttered, but his voice cracked with awe. Emma looked down at the pup, its tiny eyes blinking slowly, barely holding on. She whispered, "Just a little more." The storm still clawed at them, rain stinging their faces, but a faint outline of the rescue station stood in the distance, lights flickering through the fog. Mark groaned, "We'll never reach it in time." Emma shook her head, determination burning. "We will. We didn't come this far to lose now." She forced herself back to her feet, the pup trembling in her arms, her body screaming with exhaustion, but her will unbroken. Emma pushed forward, the station's light glowing faintly ahead like salvation. The seal whimpered once more, its sound a plea and a promise. Her arms ached, every step a battle against the storm's grip. Mark staggered behind, shouting, "Emma, wait!" But she didn't slow. Her voice rose above the storm, fierce and unyielding. "Not one more life lost. Not tonight." Lightning split the sky, illuminating her silhouette as she marched toward hope, her figure a defiance against nature and man alike. The world shrank to this single moment, the storm, the cliff, the fragile life in her arms, and her unbreakable vow. No matter the cost, she would reach that door. She would not fail. Not again. Emma burst into the rescue station, soaked to the bone, the baby seal limp in her arms. The sterile lights flickered overhead, a jarring contrast to the storm's chaos outside. A medic rushed forward, voice sharp. On the table now. Emma laid the pup down gently, her hands trembling as if letting go might shatter her. She whispered, "Stay with me, little one." Mark leaned against the wall, chest heaving, his face pale with exhaustion. The medic worked quickly, checking breathing, cutting away the last of the tangled net. Emma's throat tightened as she watched. She said softly, "Don't you dare leave me after all this." The pup's chest rose and fell, weak but steady. For the first time since the storm began, Emma let herself breathe, though her heart still throbbed with fear. The medic pressed stethoscope to the pup's chest, her brow furrowing. Breathing shallow, pulse faint. Emma gripped the edge of the table, her knuckles pale. "Tell me what to do," she begged. The medic shook her head, working swiftly, inserting a small tube to help it breathe. Mark's voice cracked from the corner. "Emma, you've done enough. Let them handle it." Emma's eyes stayed fixed on the pup, tears dripping silently. "I can't step back now." The room hummed with machines, each beep echoing louder than thunder. The seal stirred weakly, a faint twitch of its flipper, and Emma gasped, whispering, "That's it, keep fighting." The medic glanced at her, voice softer. "It's responding. It still has a chance." Emma's breath shuddered out, fragile relief piercing through the fear. Hours dragged on like days. Emma sat beside the table, her hand resting near the seal's damp fur, whispering encouragement through the night. "You're stronger than you know," she murmured. Mark brought her water, but she barely noticed. Her entire world narrowed to the fragile breaths before her. Memories clawed at her, the one she hadn't saved, the silence that haunted her. She whispered, "I won't let history repeat." The medic stepped back, tired but hopeful. "It's stable for now. Time will tell." Emma closed her eyes, relief mingling with dread. She leaned close, whispering to the pup, "No more nets. No more suffering. I'll make sure of it." Her voice carried not just to the seal, but to the ghosts that weighed on her. This was not just rescue, it was redemption. Morning light spilled into the rescue center, pale and gentle after the fury of the storm. The seal stirred, its chest rising more evenly now. Emma gasped, her hands trembling as she stroked its fur. "You made it," she whispered, tears finally falling freely. Mark stood behind her, a weary smile breaking through. "Looks like you did it, Emma." She shook her head slowly. "Not just me. It fought too. The medic nodded, her tone softer now. This pup has spirit. And so do you. Emma's gaze lingered on the seal, but her voice was firm, echoing her new vow. We can't let this keep happening. This isn't just one life, it's every life threatened by nets and greed. The morning carried not just relief, but purpose, etched sharp into her soul. Emma stood by the window, the storm finally broken, sunlight touching the waves. Behind her, the pup slept peacefully, its chest rising steady. Mark approached, resting a hand on her shoulder. You kept your promise. She nodded, but her gaze was distant. This is only the beginning. Too many more are still out there. Her voice shook, but resolve burned within it. Lucas had left silently before dawn, his absence heavy but telling. The medic approached quietly. When it's stronger, we'll release it back into the wild. Emma's lips curved into the faintest smile. Then, that day will be its victory. And mine. Her eyes lingered on the horizon, the vast sea no longer an enemy, but a challenge she had sworn to meet again. The day of release arrived under a calm sky, the sea glistening as if washed clean of its fury. Emma carried the pup carefully to the shoreline, every step heavy with both fear and joy. She whispered, "This is where you belong." The seal blinked up at her, its eyes wide and curious, no longer clouded by pain. Mark walked beside her, quiet but supportive, the medic trailing behind. The beach stretched empty, save for the endless horizon waiting to claim the pup back. Emma knelt in the sand, lowering the animal gently, her hand lingering on its damp fur. Her heart twisted as she said softly, "Be free, little one." The pup hesitated, flippers sinking into the wet sand, as if uncertain of freedom. Emma leaned closer, whispering, "You're safe now. Go on." The tide reached forward like a welcoming hand, foam curling around its small body. The seal sniffed the air, then let out a small cry, a sound of life and courage. Emma's throat ached as tears blurred her vision, yet she smiled. Mark placed a hand on her shoulder, murmuring, "It knows you saved it." Emma shook her head faintly. "No, it saved me too." The moment hung fragile, carved into memory, as the pup edged closer to the water. The pup slid into the shallow surf, waves lifting it gently, as if the ocean itself welcomed it home. Emma's chest rose sharply, her breath catching as she watched. "There you go," she whispered, her words trembling. The seal paddled uncertainly at first, then stronger, pushing further into the tide. Mark let out a shaky laugh. "It's really going to make it." Emma's tears flowed freely, her lips curving into the faintest smile. It always was. The sun broke through the clouds fully then, casting light across the sea, gilding the waves like fire. For the first time, Emma felt the storm within her heart ease, replaced by a quiet triumph she had fought desperately to earn. The seal turned once, glancing back toward the shore, its dark eyes locking with Emma's. For a heartbeat the world stilled, the ocean, the wind, her racing heart. She whispered, "Goodbye, little fighter." It was not just farewell, but release, for both of them. The pup let out one last cry before diving into the deeper waves, disappearing beneath the gleaming surface. Emma's chest ached, but she felt lighter, as though carrying less of the weight she had borne for years. Mark stood quietly, his gaze softened by the moment, while the medic wiped at her eyes. Emma let the silence linger, carrying the sound of the waves as if it were the pup's heartbeat echoing back to her. The ocean stretched endless before her, the pup gone but not lost. Emma rose slowly, the sand clinging to her knees, her body heavy yet free. She whispered, "No more silence, no more nets." Mark came to stand beside her, their gazes both fixed on the horizon. "You changed something today," he said softly. Emma nodded, her voice steady. "We both did, and this is only the beginning." The sun blazed brighter, the sea shimmering with promise as gulls cried overhead. For Emma this was not an ending, but the pulse of something new, a vow that every rescue carried forward, every fight mattered. She closed her eyes briefly, the sound of waves echoing like a heartbeat, carrying her final promise into the world.